Have you been feel probably sometimes a little bit intimidating and saying, well, as a woman, I need to demonstrate that I am good, or it was just going with the flow?
When I started my activity 15 years ago, payments were dominated by males. Today, it's not the case because we have many associations that promote the diversity in this ecosystem, like, for instance, European Women Payments Network that I represent in France, and also some national associations. But when I started my activity, people in the public space in payments were above all men and old men. So there are two difficulties, I think. The role of women and also the fact that I was very young. I started my activity when I was 23 years old, so very young in comparison with other players of the market. For me, it is not just a question of gender, it is also a question of age, because when you are young in a very old market, you have another difficulty to explore.
So please grab a cup of coffee or tea, get comfortable, and enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Brilliantly Branded podcast.
So hello and welcome one more time to another episode of the Brilliantly Branded podcast. Do you know our mission is women empowerment through the lens of branding? Because being brilliantly branded is about knowing yourself. You're really knowing who you are, what you stand for, and how you want people to feel when they met you. And this is not about perfection. I have been saying that many times, or performance, but this is about this clarity and presence and authenticity that you build around that. And my guest today, in fact, represent exactly that. My guest today has spent more than 15 years building her voice. We have been talking here about the importance of building that voice, the expertise, and she is part of the world of finance and payments. And this is a space that have been, as all we know, dominated by men. So she had been always working on that in the sense that she's an European leader, keynote speaker, and as well, she's someone that translates this complexity of this industry into human connections and innovation. I think is part of how you build your brand and how you bring things to the world in a different way. I can give more description about my guest, but I'm going to invite you, Andrea, please, if you wanted to first welcome to the Brilliantly Branded podcast, and second, if you want to compliment what I have said about you, welcome.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Andréa Toucinho. I am a director of studies, perspective and training of a French consulting company called Partelia Consulting, specialized in payments. And I am also country ambassador for France of European Women Payments Network. As you mentioned, I have several years of experience in the field of payments and innovative financial services. I started my activity in 2007 in the field of journalism about payments and finance. Since 2018, I am in the area of consulting as a director of studies. A very interesting market to explore.
Thank you for your introduction. And basically what we are going to talk about in this episode is her journey. And your journey, Andrea, is something that you have been leading along the way, and how your experience can inspire other women as well in the industry. And the main thing is for them how to find this clarity, and doesn't matter the industry actually, but finances is an industry that we are surrounded by and have a clarity that have certain things that we can improve on, right? So the first thing that I wanted to ask you, because I'm very curious about your background, is what was this first thing that made you realize, I wanted to be part of the finance and payments world, and how was to join this male-dominated industry for you?
First of all, it is important to mention that I started my activity in the field of journalism, and my ambition was not to work above all about finance. I wanted to be a journalist. So when I started my activity, I didn't have any background in the finance and payments area. So I started in 2008 in a journalist aspect. And when I started to work about payments and innovative finance, I was very interested about this market. It was very interesting to have all these issues about, for instance, the questions of geopolitics, the strategic issues, the technology. So it was very insightful. It was for me a real passion to do journalism in this area. So for my answer, I will say that this was not an ambition for me to work in the payments area, but thanks to my interests, it becomes a real passion for me.
Yeah, I can imagine, when you decide to make this decision and jumped into that, then I guess it was some barriers that you have to cross. Can you let us know what was those barriers that probably you
Yes,
found
sure.
more stronger to cross?
Sure. So my first years in the field of payments and innovative finance was not very easy because, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't have any background in finance area. In the university, I studied above all international relations and geopolitics. So finance was not my first background. So the main difficulties when I started my activity was above all linked with the different aspects with knowledge. So I didn't have any background about what does payments means, what are the main issues, what are the key players of the market. So my strategy when I was confronted with this difficulty was to do a lot of work, a lot of personal work. So for instance, I have done many meetings with professionals in payments. I have also done many works thanks to books and also other publications to gather many informations about the payments area. So it was very helpful for me because of my expertise. And after that, I think that during 1 or 2 years, I have done this huge work. In addition, with my work in journalism. After these 2 years, I had more information about the market. So it becomes more and more easier for me to work and to write articles about the payments area.
Yeah. Well, it's an entire journey, and as you well said, is coming back to put it as well from your side in learning more, in getting more approaching into the industry and knowledge. Knowledge is the secret, and if we know how to use that, have you been feel probably sometimes a little bit intimidating and saying, well, as a woman, I need to demonstrate that I am good, or it was just going with the flow?
I was also confronted with this issue of the role of women. So when I started my activity 15 years ago, payments were dominated by males. Today, it's not the case because we have many associations that promote the diversity in this ecosystem, like, for instance, European Women Payments Network that I represent in France, and also some national associations. In France, for instance, we have the association, the Circle Les Femmes du Paiement. But when I started my activity, people in the public space in payments were above all men and old men. So there are two difficulties, I think. The role of women and also the fact that I was very young. I started my activity when I was 23 years old. So very young in comparison with other players of the market. And I have also a strong issue to demonstrate when I was younger, the necessity to demonstrate this capacity to work in a male and old area. For me, it is not just a question of gender. It is also a question of age, because when you are young in a very old market, you have another difficulty to explore. But
To
it was
deal with.
yes.
As you well said, it's not just gender, but as well is generational. So it's facing another generation where you really don't have this credibility because your age, as we train to put people in boxes, so young people no, or old
Yes.
people no. I mean, it's a mix of things, and I think that part of that have been happening in the process of deciding, okay, I'm going to open my own company, I'm going to build my own business. So what was the trigger for you to say, do you know, I'm going to do that, I'm going to establish my own company, my own brand? What makes you decide to shift that and to build your own world, let's say?
I was not confronted with the goal to create my own company because, as I mentioned earlier, I work for a consulting company called Partelia Consulting. But I was confronted with the goal to change my experience in payments, since in the first part of my work, I worked as a journalist. And in 2017, I was confronted with the goal to evolve towards a more consulting work for two main reasons. The first one was my goal to explore the market at a pan-European level. Since when you are a journalist in the payments area, you are above all confronted with national issues. And I wanted also to explore the main issues of payments in different EU countries. And the other goal was also to foster my knowledge in the field of payments because, as I mentioned earlier, in the first years of my work, I created a real passion for the payments ecosystem, and I wanted to develop this knowledge about the ecosystem. So the idea to work in the consulting area is a good way, I think, to explore this market. For instance, whereas a few years ago I produced articles about payments. Today, I produce white papers, books about this area. So it's not the same work, and it's very insightful and very interesting.
Yeah, and I really like how you explained that, because that gave us many reasons to understand why now you are a voice leading in the payment industry, in the finance industry, because you really need to put a lot from your side in order, and this passion that you mentioned, no? So how
Yes.
you put that and really make the things happen. But maybe for people that can learn from you, from your experience, what have been, probably if you can put it in steps, that you took to build this authority? Because part of what I am speaking, of course, with my clients when I am working with them in building their brands and building their authority, is something like doesn't happen from one day to the next one. You know, it's a procedure, it's a process, it's timing. If you can like maybe give us some steps that people that are listening to us can follow, that will be amazing.
Yes, sure. So I think that the main recommendations that I can share, first of all, is the fact to do a lot of personal work. For me, it was a real key aspect of my professional development. So I think it is important to build this legitimacy thanks to not just a professional activity, but also thanks to a real personal work. So it is important. I think that it is also interesting to produce and to share, thanks to social media, some, for instance, articles, some documents. It also brings some legitimacy for professionals in payments to share some ideas, thanks to articles, white papers. It is a real aspect, I think, to develop in our ecosystem, since in the payments area, we have many concerns and many questions about geopolitics, about strategy, about technology. So there are many insights to share about this market. And I
Yeah.
think that it is also important to have a real place and role in the public space in the payments area. For instance, to participate in some conferences, in some trainings, to build this visibility as a professional
Yeah.
in the ecosystem. It is above all important, I think, for women, because we have been confronted a few years ago with the lack of women in the public space in payments. So
Yeah.
thanks to some key associations today, we have more women in conferences linked with payments. But I think that we have continue this work to give a real role to women in this area. So the idea to be a leader, to be a speaker in leading events in payments is also a good recommendation to share. And last but not least, the networking aspect. I think it is important in this ecosystem to build some professional relations with fellow experts in payments to create a real community. Because in the payments area today, we are more and more working in a collaborative way. So the networking is a key aspect also to become a real public voice in the field of payments.
Yeah, you have been just giving us an amazing package in the sense that the first things is be prepared, but doing the things with passion in order for you to really be real prepared, and then build your network. I have a question related with, because be a keynote speaker, let's say, I mean, everybody say, well, you know, you find the places where you wanted to go and speak, but that was natural on you, or do you have to step on a stage to really learn how to do that?
It was not easy in the beginning. It is also a real challenge, and I had to do a real personal work for this also, because when I started my activity, I was confronted with the necessity to create conferences in payments, but I was not the speaker. I created the agenda, but the speaker was a man. One day, my boss told me, so Andrea, you create the conferences, so you have to also be a speaker because you are the organizer. So I think you have a real legitimacy to be also a speaker. And I was not very comfortable in the beginning with this idea, but as it was a key aspect for my boss, I have done a real personal work to do this challenge to be a speaker. So I have, for instance, prepared a lot my PowerPoint presentation. I have also done many work with my colleagues and my boss to prepare the public speaking in order to be natural, to be professional. So I think that it is not very easy for many people to be a public speaker, but when you do some work to prepare yourself, and if you have colleagues to share this key aspect, you can manage it. It's not easy, but if you do the work, you can do it.
Yeah, the most difficult part is probably the moment previous to be on the stage, because it's the moment that the things start to be quite chaotic. And actually, coming a little bit back to your background, because payment might sound quite technical, but they are impacting all of us. And part of what you have been doing as well, and is your expertise, is delivering this information in a more easy or understandable way. So now, knowing my audience and the people that are listening to us right now, I would love to know if there is some trends that should be keeping in consideration, that is going to be started to be applied, or really for us that matter to have this information with us right now.
Yes, sure. As you mentioned, payments is a very complicated and technical area, but it has consequences at a social way. So it is important to be aware, not just as professional, but also as a consumer, of all these aspects. I think that the key trends in payments for the next years are, first of all, the evolution of regulation. It is a little bit technical, but I think it is important to mention it. So today, in the payments area, we have an evolution towards a PSD3 that will bring a new aspect in the field of security, in the field of opening of the market with the evolution of open banking. So it is a key aspect to follow. It is important also to be aware that PSD is not just the only one regulation to know the market. It is important also to keep an eye to other regulations, like the regulation linked with emerging technologies like MiCA in the field of crypto assets, and also the AI Act. We have also to be aware of the consequences of GDPR and AML legislations in the field of payments. Other key trends, in addition to the regulation aspects, is also the evolution of users in payments. So today we are confronted with a huge development of electronic means of payments. We have, for instance, one tool in Europe that is developing a lot. It is instant payment. So today, instant payment is more and more used in the different EU countries, thanks to also an European regulation that aims at promoting this tool as the new normal in Europe. So I think that it is also an important aspect to have in mind. And last but not least, the geopolitical issues. So I think that the issue of European sovereignty in the field of payments will be one of the major issues in our area in the next years. It is not a new subject. Since when I started my activity a few years ago, European sovereignty in the field of payments was a topic, but it was very institutional and politics, whereas today we have many operational concerns about this issue, thanks to, for instance, the geopolitical instability. So today
Yeah.
we have many projects that aim at fostering the European independence in the field of payments, for instance, EPI company in France, Germany, and the Benelux countries. We have also an interesting initiative in the south of Europe called Europa for European Alliance. And we have also other initiatives promoted by the public side, for instance, the Digital Euro project that has been created by ECB. So as you can see, we have many projects in the field of
Yeah.
European sovereignty. So it will be also interesting to follow this key topic in the next years.
Yeah, because it's many shifts actually that are affecting not just us as a consumers, but as well all the entrepreneurs that are wanted to establish a company and doing, including all the payments into the platforms. So all the things, keeping up to date, what is happening and how that can really affect their business. And us as an individual, seeing how we are going to adopt the new things, because I think probably we take for granted many things that are happening with the payments because we end up not understanding very well what is happening. But I think is going to be just a common topic in which we need to understand what is happening in order for us to avoid any chaos around, right?
Yes.
And just to start to wrap up, Andrea, probably can you share with us what have been the lessons that you have been learning that you would like to share, not just for women, but in general, that have been really making you succeed and be positioned as the expert that you are in the industry?
Yes, sure. I think that I already mentioned some key recommendations, but
Yeah.
let's do it. So, first of all, the personal work. I think that it is important if you want to be a real public voice in this market to do not just a professional activity, but also a real personal implication in the sector. When you are passionate about that, it is easier, I know, but it is important if you want
Yeah.
to develop yourself in this sector. The second key aspect, I think, is the necessity to share some knowledge, some insights with your colleagues, but also with the market. It is also a good way to gather some information and to become more visible in the payments area, and maybe also to write some articles, some white papers, documents to become a leading voice in
Yeah.
the public space of the payments area, and the importance of networking, as I mentioned. So
Yeah.
don't hesitate to integrate some think tanks, some associations linked with this payment aspect. So I think it is also a good way to become a public voice and to develop knowledge about this market.
Yeah, you mentioned sharing, and I think that this is part of a mindset, and I guess that have been part of what you have been having with you, this mindset of sharing, because sharing in certain way is not only to share your knowledge, but actually to absorb what other things, what other
Yes.
have for you to learn. And if you could, for example, go back and give an advice to your younger self when you was entering this world, coming from journalism, arriving to that, what would you say?
I will say to her to be more confident about herself, to have more self-esteem, because I had a lot of stress when I started my activity as a journalist, and also when my boss told me to become a public speaker in this market. So maybe it will be the advice that I will share with my younger self to be more confident about herself and to have more self-esteem. It is
That
also
is
important.
beautiful.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's very important. And well, no, thank you, Andrea, because it's very important to share the things and to understand how we end up building our personal brand, but doing a really hard job in order to connect many different things. So thank you for all the value that you have just delivered, and wishing you all the best in your next keynote speaker processes and things related with payments. All the best for you, Andrea. Thank you very much for being part of the Brilliantly
Thank
Branded
you.
podcast.
And thank you very much for your invitation. It was very interesting. Have a nice day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you very much.
I'm grateful by having you as a listener on this episode. I am in the mission of empowering thousands of women around the globe, and I need your support for that. Help me to spread the voice by sharing this episode and subscribe to our social media channels. And remember, if you want to listen to exceptional stories and have someone that inspires you, please get in touch with me, because I would love to have them as a guest to learn from their experience and share their story with you next time. So until the next episode, ciao ciao.